So welcome to Sun and Moon's Yoga YouTube channel. I'm Jennifer Eubank here every Friday morning from 10 to 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. And today I have for you part 6 of the Hips Don't Lie series. And I thought we would focus on the sacrum. So we've talked a lot about the hip joints where the leg bones hook up with the hip structure. Those are your hip joints. But we also have hip joints in the back where our sacrum meets up with our hips. So our sacrum, I'll turn around again, that is the widest part of your spine in between the hips, and you can maybe place your hands on the back here, maybe even press your thumbs and just kind of feel that wide part of your spine. Just kind of articulate it, maybe kind of walk about. So I'm going to put my thumbs on the joints here and walk about and see if I can feel them actually articulating. That's an interesting little exploration for you to get to know that sacrum. So it's the joints, the SI joints are where the sacrum hook up with your hips, and they are the seat of a lot of problems. And the more we stabilize our hips and stabilize the sacrum and the SI joint, the more healthy our hips are, and the more we can get around in life with a smile on our face. So I want to focus today on that sacrum. And after you've done that a few times, just really feel that motion. Might feel a little different between the left side and the right side. And once you get a feel for that, go ahead and lie down on your mats. And bend your knees. Feet on the floor, arms by the sides, and just take a couple of moments to feel your relation to the earth, your connection to the earth. And then when you're ready, take your focus into that sacrum bone. So it's 5 vertebrae that are fused together, the widest part of your sacrum, your spine, and you need that width because of the hips and the relation to the hips, or between the hips and the sacrum. Maybe close your eyes and take a few breaths as you focus on that area. And then when you're ready, start to move about. Shift from side to side. Tuck your belly in a little bit to take the small out of your back, that arch out of your back. That can protect your hips as you do this. And you might want to try a few rounds where you kind of let go of that and feel that small of the back. And shift from side to side. And as you're ready, start to maybe shift from the top to the bottom. Go back and forth, and just really feel the connection between your sacrum and the earth. And then start to roll around, and maybe go from the top left to the right bottom, and the left bottom to the right top. Maybe play around with those paths, and breathe as you do this. Feel those bony parts, little structures, those SI joints moving about. So we're just stabilizing things here, starting to work through the joints. And then as you're ready, let's do some pelvic tilts. So these are like cats and cows. So draw your belly in, and then start to lift round the spine away from the earth, and then round the spine towards the earth, which means you're tilting your pelvis back and forth. Not as much of a range of motion as our table cat and cows, but this is a nice way to really get in touch and get in tune with that sacrum, because as you draw the spine away from the floor, you can feel that sacrum tilting forward, and as you round the spine towards the floor, you can feel that connection between the earth and your sacrum. And if you want to spend a few breaths in each side of this, you can do that. And then when you're ready, come back to a neutral pelvis. And then bring your knees into your chest for Apanasana, wind relief pose. And we'll start to move the hip joints about a little bit more. The hip joints where the legs meet the torso. So remember, as we bring the legs into the chest, we're flexing our hip joints. And as we start to draw the knees and feet away from each other and away from the midline, we're abducting the hip joints. And as we bring those knees and feet back towards the center, we're adducting, ADD. We're flexing as we bring the knees towards us. And if you'd like, you can do some hip circles and start that internal and external rotation movement that the hips can also do. Waking up those joints even more, creating that synovial fluid, lubricating our joints. Maybe take a couple more breaths with the knees coming into the joints, and take a couple of nice deep breaths. Nice long inhales followed by nice long exhales, and see if that helps you flex those hip joints a little bit more. But don't go beyond your edge. It's really important that you protect your hips and you stay maybe within your edge or just slightly approaching it. And I find that I have injured my hips as I constantly go to my edge and beyond and overextend. So speaking of extend, let's extend our hip joints by taking a quick bridge pose. Root into your feet and root into your shoulders and your arms, and lift up. And maybe not lift up as high as you normally can, just enough to kind of extend those hips. So not to overextend those hips, and maybe do a little bit of back and forth. And as you're ready, we can exhale those hips back down. And then this next move I want to show you is a Kundalini sequence that I learned. And we start with our knees bent and extend one leg out. So I'm going to pick my stronger leg first. And it happens to be the leg that's away from you, but you'll be able to see it as it starts to move. And the way this move works is we draw our belly in and tuck our pelvis forward or tilt it forward to protect that lower back. And then you use the belly muscles to lift that leg up and then to float it back down. And you don't let it go all the way down. So it comes up and down. And really feel the movement starting deep in the belly to help that hip joint. And the leg is strong. So notice that my foot is flexed because that strengthens my thigh muscles. And we bring the leg not real high. We don't want to go higher than this knee. And we come back down. So it's back and forth. And I'm going to set the timer so as you start to get more used to this, maybe you can go a little bit faster. And we coordinate it with the breath. We inhale as we extend, and we exhale as we lower. That's very important. Keep your hips even. So even though your legs are doing something different, it's important that the hips are even. So you inhale as you lift and you exhale as you lower. And you can make that breath really vigorous if you like. I'll do a few rounds of that. You can inhale with the nose and exhale with the mouth. Which makes the movement much more vigorous, much more emphatic, and much more resulting in effects there. But that can be kind of tough. So after a few rounds of that, if you want to slow it down, you can start to slow it down. You can go back and forth to that. I've backed off of it. I'm slowing down because I know we're going to start to finish up. So let's take the last few kind of small. Inhale, extend, exhale, lower. This leg is nice and strong. This hip is even with this. And then I eventually bring it all the way down and keep that leg extended for a breath or two. So relax and just let it lay there. And then bend that knee and stay here for a breath or two. And notice the difference, if any, between the two hip joints. And then as you're ready, inhale the knees into the chest for wind relief. And take a few breaths here. Bring your knees down, your feet down, and extend your other leg. So this is my sore leg, and I'm not going to lift it up quite as high. So this is a good way for you to see that you can still do these movements, but work within the range of your movement, your abilities, and your limitations. So I'm not going to go as high, and I'm not going to go as fast with this one. I'm still inhaling as I extend and lift, and exhaling as I come down. I'm bracing myself with my torso and my arms. I'm keeping my upper body nice and strong. Belly is drawn in. Movement is emanating from the belly region, protecting this hip joint. And this leg is strong, so that foot is flexed, keeping this leg strong. And I'm starting to increase my range of motion because it's starting to loosen up, and I'm asking my entire body to help this hip joint, keeping them both even. Inhale as I extend, exhale as I lower. We'll do just a few more. This leg is solid and strong, but not stiff. And then the last one, I'm going to slowly lower down with that exhale and spend a couple of breaths feeling the length of the leg. I notice a huge difference in my hip joints. Now my hip joints feel much more lower and more towards the back of my body, more connected to the earth. And then I can feel that connection even more so as I bend. And then bring the knees into the chest for a couple of breaths, and we'll bring neutrality and symmetry back to everything in our legs. Hopefully your hip joints felt fairly similar. It's more in the legs. My right leg is a little more tired than my left, so I'm working through that, doing a couple more apanasanas and hip rolls in my apanasana, my wind relief pose, giving my sacrum a nice little massage. Take a couple more breaths. And then as you're ready, let's come to the side, roll to the side, and push up to a seat. And I have this blanket all ready for my seat. So I'm going to sit up on this blanket because my hips are a little sore, especially this right one. And so sitting up on this blanket gives them the height to more ensure a stable seat. I'm going to kind of root into it and just stay here for a couple of breaths in our easy pose, Sukhasana pose. Root into your sit bones evenly, draw your belly in, lift your sternum, relax your shoulders and your knees, soften your face. Take a couple of breaths. Notice what's going on as you sit. And then as you're ready, take the hands out to the sides. And let's inhale them up overhead and interlace the fingers and then reach up, turn them to face so the palms are facing the ceiling, and keep the belly drawn in and your seat rooted, and see if you can reach up a little bit higher with the shoulders relaxed, but stay nice and rooted. Feel the rib cages lifting, the two sides of your rib cage lifting off of your hip crest, your hip bones. Maybe take a little curve from one side, really lengthen both sides before you curve so that you're not collapsing into the side that you're curving into. We'll come back to center and do that over on the other side. Lengthen with an inhale and gently curve to the other side. Keep both sides nice and long, elbows and shoulders relaxed. And then come back to center and bring those arms down. And take a couple of breaths to notice if you feel a little bit more space in your torso, particularly in relation between the ribs and your hips. Sit up nice and tall. And then for our last pose, we'll extend their legs out and bring your feet wide. And you don't need to go real wide. It's not how wide you go. It's that your legs are forming a 90-degree angle. That's the most important thing. So to begin with, I don't go very wide because I want my hips to settle in and feel that width. I don't want to go real wide because I might injure them. That's going to my edge right away. And that's where you create injuries in your joints. So, root into your sits bones evenly, draw your belly in, lift your sternum, relax your shoulders, relax your knees. Maybe press into the floor with the heels of the feet, press into the blanket or the mat with your sits bones. And as you're ready, maybe close your eyes for a few breaths and take your mind back into your sacrum. Maybe even put your hands back there on the sacrum and feel it. Breathe into it. Feel its width. It's wider up top than it is towards the bottom. And by the way, because it's wider up top, that's considered the base of the sacrum. The base is not at the bottom of the sacrum, it's at the top of the sacrum. And that's to make room for these wide hips. So maybe you can take a few more breaths and create more space in your pelvic region, in your hip region, in the front and the back and the sides. See if you can bring a little bit more width to that sacrum. And it's not getting wider, but it's just feeling wider because we're letting go of tensions that we might be holding on to around that sacrum. And then from here, we'll take a very gentle forward fold. So sit up nice and tall, use the inhale to find that length, and use the exhale to hinge at the hips. And keep the legs strong, the belly strong, and the chest lifted so that your lower back doesn't bear the brunt of this challenge. The whole body is participating to bring you forward. And when you ask the entire body to help, then you can go a little bit deeper and you can enjoy these poses much more easily. And you can find your sense of peace and quiet. You can find your full potential for your pose. So you don't have to come all the way down and that's the perfect pose. You can go halfway down and not go very far at all. But as long as you can find your quiet and your stillness and wherever you go, that's your full articulation of that pose. So it's really important that you don't go beyond these edges, to listen to the messages that your body is giving you. And my message that I just received, get a couple of blocks and put them in front of you. And put your hands on the blocks, and that can kind of support you. And if you'd like to root into your sits bones and your legs and lift back up and start all over again, you can do that. Find a little bit more space in your entire torso, the front, the sides, and the back. Really lift your ribs away from those hips and find that rooted and lifting action that's happening at the same time, and see if that can help you perhaps go a little further or go the same rate that you just did but feel a little bit more comfortable in it. And we'll take a couple more breaths. I'm going to close my eyes and take my attention into my sacrum. Again, there are 5 fused vertebrae, the widest part of your spine, very strong bone. Sacrum means the sacred bone. I just read last night that the Greeks call it the holy bone. So it has a very rich cultural history and significance. Our sacrum is pretty much the joining point between the lower part of our body and our upper part of our body. It distributes the force and the action from the legs to the upper body and vice versa. So I've come back up. I'm going to go ahead and remove my blocks. And that's a very, very brief foray into our sacrum. We could talk so much more about the sacrum, but that's a nice brief explanation. So we'll finish up with coming into easy pose and root into your sits bones. Maybe close the eyes and take your mind into your sacrum one last time. Take a few breaths. And as you're ready, you can bring your hands to heart center. Namaste. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me today. Again, I'm Jennifer Eubank, and I'm here every Friday at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time from 10 to 10:30. And if you'd like a more interactive experience, please join me Thursdays from 4 to 5:15 on the Sun and Moon Zoom class site. So thank you so much. Have a lovely weekend and be safe, be well, be happy. Namaste. Thank